Welcome to On the Go with AAUW, the American Association of University Women. I'm your host, Jennifer DeSanto, the Executive Director of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at George Mason University. And our guest today is Dr. Nance Lucas, the Director of the George Mason University Center for the Advancement of Well-Being. Thanks for coming and visiting with us today. So nice to see you, Nance.
Same here, and it's quite a pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy that we're going to be talking about wellness and well-being. It's one of my favorite things to think about, but it's one of those things that's hard to define sometimes, because we think about wellness, we think about eating well and getting enough sleep and having good relationships, and those are kind of the cornerstones of wellness, but there must be some scientific definition.
Oh, sure, and there's a wide range of definitions of well-being and its relationship to wellness as well. And some people define well-being in different kinds of domains, like social well-being, physical well-being, psychological well-being, community well-being. Our definition at Mason is building a life of vitality, purpose, resilience, and engagement. And we came up with the definition of well-being because we were in the process of creating a strategic goal for becoming a model well-being university at Mason. And so we had to define it for not only ourselves, but for all of higher education. And so a group of students, faculty, staff, university leaders created this one sentence, I think short but powerful definition of what we mean at Mason when we say well-being.
And so the impetus for starting the center, was that because students specifically have difficulty perhaps dealing with the stresses that they're facing when they're going through the throes of college life?
Sure, I think that's part of it. And actually the real impetus of how the center got started in 2009 was from Don and Nancy Delasky, who were friends of George Mason University, and they were actually Duke alumni, and as young students enrolled in a religious studies course at Duke, they had a professor who really focused on meaning and purpose in life. And that particular course, as they told the story, changed their lives and gave them greater direction in their lives and greater meaning and purpose. And they, throughout their entire careers and through their life, they carried those lessons with them. And so they wanted opportunities for young people to have the same ability to learn and explore their own meaning and purpose in life. And so that is how the center was created in 2009.
So what are the programs that you're having students get engaged with in order to pursue that purpose?
Sure, we have a wide range of opportunities for students inside and outside the classroom, and our center sponsors some of these programs. So for example, we have an undergraduate minor in consciousness and transformation, and so students can take a coherent grouping of courses around that theme. We also have a residential program where students live together in a residence hall under the theme of mindful living, and so they actually learn and they actually experience ways in which they can grow and become more mindful as students while they're at Mason. And then we have partners around the university like University Life who sponsor activities outside of the classroom. So for example, we have a new program that was created by our Office of Student Involvement called the Mason Student Wellbeing Team. And these are undergraduate students. They're like peer educators. And they impact other students' learning through workshops and programs. And so this week, our Student Wellbeing Team is actually sponsoring Wellbeing Week at Mason, and there's a wide range of opportunities for students to learn and get involved.
And will they do things like yoga and meditation? I noticed also we have on display some motivational sayings and things like that. Is that part of that particular exercise?
Yes, there's the activities range because we all kind of have an experience of diverse types of activities that influence our own well-being. And so for some it's yoga, For others, it's meditation. For others, it's music and art. And for some, it's gratitude practices. And so we have a workshop that the students are sponsoring this Friday on practicing gratitude and what are the scientific, evidence-based support for gratitude practices. And so they have quite a bit of activities like that as well.
But the center also puts on activities not only for the students but also the wider community in terms of daily practices that you offer. Can you tell us a little bit about those offerings?
Sure, and let me also say that the mission of the center is to serve as a catalyst for human well-being. And we also, our symbol is the ripple effect, because we also hope that our students, when they graduate, that they will go out into their careers and into their communities and with their families, and they will positively facilitate the well-being of others, thereby affecting thousands and millions of people. And so, so our center does sponsor a wide range of these programs and courses, but more importantly, we are involving a number of units across the university around this agenda. So our Human Resources Office creates programs for employees. So for example, they have a certificate in well-being for faculty and staff, so they can learn the science and application of well-being.
And implement that in the workplace.
And implement in the workplace. Our College of Visual and Performing Arts last year created a new minor in well-being in music. And so students from all majors can enroll in this minor and learn how music impacts our well-being at the individual and organizational levels.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are scholarships for students as well. I think you have the Mary Roper Scholarship for
well, we have
through the center, or is that sponsoring an activity?
Yeah, that's a different scholarship in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. We have a scholarship in the center called Elena Scholarships for Student Wellbeing. And so Elena Priyan created this endowed scholarship program for students so that they can use these resources to further their own learning and growth. And so each year we select 6 students who then become Elena Scholars for Wellbeing. And they are also, as part of the scholarship program, they are paired with a faculty staff mentor throughout the year who can actually be their thought partner in how they learn and grow and develop greater resilience.
And you work with, let's see, you do some research at the center as well. I know we have a couple of books. Last year I had on this program, Beth Cabrera came out and talked about her book, Beyond Happy.
Yes.
And Dr. Beth Cabrera is a senior scholar at the Center for the Advancement of Wellbeing. I think I have her book. You brought her book along here. Women, Work, and Wellbeing. Beyond Happy is the book. And then also The Upside to Your Dark Side by Todd Kashdan, Dr. Todd Kashdan, is that how you pronounce his name?
That's correct.
And so you have scholars at the center that are doing research on social anxiety and wellness, positivity, that kind of thing. Would you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. We do take a hard-headed scientific approach to well-being and resilience and life purpose. So everything that we do and promote at the center is evidence-based. And a number of our senior scientists, Todd Kashdan being one of them, and our senior scholars are engaged in research around various different concepts and constructs related to well-being and resilience. So for example, Todd in his book, The Upside of Your Dark Side, really addresses this notion of we need to experience and express the full range of emotions and be our authentic selves. And that's an important lesson around leading a well-lived life, is to be who you are and to be able to express well all kinds of anger, all kinds of emotions ranging from anger to love, to gratitude, the negative emotions, the positive emotions.
Living an impassioned life.
Yes, living an impassioned life. And in understanding that there's not a certain recipe for how you create and sustain high quality relationships or how you have a well-lived life.
That's a misconception that's well held across America. I mean, I think I think that we're seeing a lot of that in traditional constructs of marriage and expectations of what you're supposed to do with your life. So it's great that that's being addressed openly.
And for our students, it's important for them to learn and understand how to respond to the full range of emotions in their lives as well, from dealing with disappointments and setbacks to dealing with moments of joy and accomplishment and so forth. So we are committed to providing those tools and that kind of learning to students while they're here at Mason so that they can carry that into their lives beyond their time at our university.
And you've written a book yourself to that effect, right? The Exploring Leadership for College Students Who Want to Make a Difference. This is another aspect of what we're talking about, but you're talking about leadership in this case. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. When we wrote Exploring Leadership, my colleagues Susan Kumoviz and Tim McMahon decided to write this book, and our first edition was released in the mid-1990s. And at the time, there were very few books on leadership for young people. And most of them were about political elites in leadership or books looking at historical leaders. And so we were teaching courses in leadership and we were using these, and we could see how students weren't really connecting on a personal level with these books. So we decided to write this one, and we actually interviewed I think about 100 students when we were creating the first edition of this book, and we actually sprinkled their stories of leadership throughout the book. And so we wanted to create something where students would find themselves in the pages of our book versus writing the textbook about college students.
And you're doing leadership workshops are you doing those with students as well? I know you're doing some with business community members.
Yes, and we actually have our leader development workshops where we connect the science and application also of well-being with leadership. We have programs and workshops available for undergraduate students. So our LEAD office in University Life hosts a wide range of conferences on student leadership and workshops and so forth. We also have an executive education program where we offer certificates in leadership development and well-being, and also in executive coaching.
And you have some conferences that you put on. I know I've attended the annual well-being conference. I always learn something new whenever I go to those. There's always great takeaways. The last one I went to, we learned about AI. Can you tell us about AI? What is AI?
So AI is appreciative inquiry. And appreciative inquiry is a type of, if you will, a strategic planning tool, but it also is an approach that calls people to look at what's right in organizations and what's right about individuals versus what's wrong with them. And so appreciative inquiry really unleashes the positive, life-giving forces in organizations, and it does that in part through capturing stories from people about their best possible selves in their organizations, or their best moments of leadership in their organizations. And it's also a very future-looking type of approach. So one question would be, what are your 3 wishes for this organization 5 years from now? Versus a traditional strategic planning process that says, here are the 3 problems that we have, and here are the solutions that we're going to use to address those problems. It's not very engaging and inspiring, and it's a very conventional approach. An appreciative inquiry really engages and inspires people to look at the assets inside the organization and how we can take those assets for a better future.
And you can even drill down to the individual in this case as well. And I know
Yes.
that you have a partnership with Gallup, and you have a StrengthsFinder survey that you work with Gallup, the Clifton StrengthsFinder survey.
That's right.
I took that. Why don't you tell us what it is, and then I'll tell you what my strengths are.
Oh, great. Well, the StrengthsFinder is a self-discovery tool assessment, and it was created from Gallup's longitudinal research on what made people successful and excellent in their jobs. So it's really a self-assessment tool around excellence and signature strengths. And it was created in the late 1990s. The archetype of the StrengthsFinder is Don Clifton, who at the time was CEO and president of the Gallup organization. By background, he was an organizational psychologist, and he was engaged in this longitudinal research, which then they uncovered 34 common behaviors that made people effective in their jobs, and they looked at all kinds of sectors and people from around the world.
And so I'll tell you what my strengths are. But I think that the application of learning about these strengths is then to pair up people complementary, and so that you have teams that are going to be optimal. Is that the sense of it? So let me see. I know what's not being able to find your notes. That's not one of my strengths. But let's see. Maximizer, analytical. And some other ones.
Responsibility.
Responsibility, that's right. I told you them earlier. So you must have like good memory on yours. Now that's not one of them.
A ranger.
A ranger.
As I think
yeah, so I really felt like they were very true to form when I took the assessment. And it actually made me feel a little more empowered in terms of kind of identifying what I think, putting a word to a behavior. And so that made me feel good about the whole experience. And your several of your scholars are going to come to the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute to do some exercises with us. And we have a four series program that we're going to have various people. You're going to be coming. What are you going to be teaching when you come?
I'm going to be talking about leading and living a life with strengths. And so all of the OLLI members who come to my workshop are going to actually, in advance, they're going to take the StrengthsFinder assessment. So they're going to come in with their top 5 strengths. And we're going to talk about how they can leverage those for greater meaning and purpose in their lives.
Yeah, and it'll be really fun, and I'm sure very exciting. A lot of our retirees will maybe realize for the first time some of their strengths. And what I'm actually hoping to do is do an AI at OLLI, at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, because the way that we're constructed we have a volunteer base. I think it'd be really healthy for us to have that kind of a project to help us see us into the future in strategic planning.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about some certifications that you offer, but what other things are you doing specifically in terms of outreach to organizations, businesses out in the Northern Virginia region?
Sure. We offer customized leader development work for businesses and organizations, federal agencies in the metro area, and even beyond. Because our values-based leader development model is really around a strengths-based leadership approach, and also around engaging others in the organization for greater human flourishing inside organizations. Leaders are part of that equation, but so are employees. And so in our various executive education programs, we not only expose the participants to the scholarly work that supports organizational well-being, but we also provide them with opportunities to actually apply their learning inside our executive education programs through case studies, through assessments, through team activities, through change initiatives, and so forth.
Is that part of the coaching cohort that you have? Is that the same thing, the executive programs? Yes,
and we are at the center, we have actually 2 different coaching certificates. We have a basic level coaching certificate that's cohort based, and then we also have an advanced coaching certificate. So anyone who has a credential in coaching can take also our advanced coaching certificate, and which really underscores one of our values at the center, which is our commitment to lifelong learning. Mm-hmm. So we believe when individuals go through any of our programs, it's important for us to have opportunities for them to continue their learning elsewhere. So whether it's through advanced certificates, through workshops for the conference, our Leading to Wellbeing conference that you have come to in the past. Mm-hmm. So it's important for us to continue that work for individuals.
And how is the center serving as a model for other universities? Have you seen impacts now that you've been at it a couple of years now? What kinds of residual impacts are you seeing? Are other universities trying these kinds of programs? What types of modeling are you seeing across the country?
That's a great question. And what's so interesting about that is when we first started the initiative a little over 2 years ago, we were starting from scratch. We created the blueprint for a Wellbeing University. We created the foundation, and then we launched a wide range of different programs, initiatives around the university. And it caught quite a bit of attention from other colleges and universities, and all of a sudden we had individuals and teams of people coming to visit us at Mason to learn what we were doing. And very quickly we've seen now a growing interest in a very formal way within higher education around institutional commitment to well-being. And so we're seeing more universities create initiatives. Some are university-wide commitments like ours, and others are programmatic. We even had a school district from Texas visit us over the summer to learn what we were doing at the university level and how they might be able to implement or replicate some of that at a whole school district K through 12.
And what kind of programs would you see implemented at a K through 12? Would that be mindfulness, daily meditations? Can you give us some examples of that?
Sure. And actually I think that's where we really need to start, or with younger generations and younger ages of children, because they're in their formation stages, and so they're developing early habits. So I think really to give, again, young people the tools to understand the importance of mindfulness and being able to focus and to be able to disconnect from all of the distractions that they have in their lives, right? Like Facebook and social media and tweeting, and I can't even keep up with all the ones that come out. It seems like there's a new one every other month. Yeah. But they're really plugged in, and they also experience a large amount of stress and pressure before they come to college, well before they come to college. And so teaching them mindfulness practices and teaching them about expressing positive emotions like joy and love and gratitude, and the importance of giving to others, and how when we give to others, it actually increases our own well-being.
Companionate love. I think I learned about this too
when
we were at the conference 2 years ago.
Yes, and Dr. Mandy O'Neill, who is one of our senior scientists at the center, she's also a professor in our School of Business at Mason, has done quite a bit of field research on companionate love in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And when you start to talk about, positive emotions and even love at the workplace, people, you get their attention. Yeah. But it is these kinds of interactions in the workplace when we show compassion and care and joy and love, that it does create in a different environment and creates better conditions for human flourishing.
You're seeing a different kind of workplace these days, are we? I mean, the hierarchical stuff is kind of waning, and we're looking at more cooperative leadership structures. Do you tap into that with your research? Do you explore that and implement that with some of your programs?
Yes, and and there's also some really wonderful studies around employee engagement and the kind of leadership that impacts positively employee engagement and productivity. And the kind of leadership that does that is the leaders that really empower others to create a shared vision, to create a shared agenda, and to leverage talents and strengths to make that vision a reality, versus the top-down approach where a leader comes in and says, this is going to be our vision and here's how we're going to get there. So the more engaging a leader is, the more productive and the more meaning and purpose that employees experience in their life, and we retain talent better in organizations when we take that approach.
And I think Mason's at the forefront of that. I think they're kind of walking the walk.
Yes, I agree. And we are looking at all of these different topics and constructs and using Mason as a laboratory. So in other words, we're not just taking what we're doing at Mason and publishing it and disseminating it. That's important too. But we're actually applying the science and the research that we're doing right at Mason to create this kind of organizational college with this large distributed public university.
It's an amazing success story, and it's just beginning, really.
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
I'm very impressed. I know that our viewers are going to be interested. How can they find out about getting engaged with the programs that you're offering in terms of the publicly available?
Yes, we have actually two different websites that our center sponsors. One is the center's website, which is wellbeingcenter.gmu.edu. They can also visit our Wellbeing University website that has also a number of resources and free publications. And that website is wbu.gmu.edu, and we encourage the viewers to attend one of our programs or come to our conference or engage in some of our certificate programs. Go up on the web. There's a number of articles that have been published by our scholars. They're free for others to use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been a terrific time spending with you. I feel even better just having spent this short amount of time with you, and I look forward to getting engaged with the programming at the center. I'm Jennifer DeSanto. Thank you very much for watching AAUW.